If I had a crystal ball, I would say within a decade, maybe two, if you're not building with modular, you're going to be slowly going down the drain.
Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of building and remodeling. Join us as we explore an industry that is evolving with new products, designs, practices, and technologies, from builders to remodelers to executives, as well as those with outside perspectives. Each episode of Construction Disruption meets with forward thinkers as well as others in the know who share their unique insights. Construction Disruption is created and sponsored by Isaiah Industries, a manufacturer of specialty metal roofing systems. I'm Seth Heckerman, sales manager here at Isaiah. My co-host today is Todd Miller, our president. Behind the scenes, pulling all of this off, we have Ethan Young, our content writer, and Ryan Bell, creative director. So Todd, getting started on this episode, I know you have been on the road the last couple of weeks at an industry event and show. I just wanted to hear what you're bringing back. What have you learned here recently that would be of interest to our listeners?
I have indeed, and that was exciting. So last week we had our industry's major trade show, MetalCon, was held last week in Tampa, and 2020, we didn't have a MetalCon, so our last one was 2019 in Pittsburgh. But, it was really, really good to see competitors and vendors again. Now, I say that because there really were not a whole lot of customers at the show. It was relatively low attendance, and I don't really track that up so much to COVID as I do just everyone is so busy. We're in such a busy time and such a vibrant industry right now with so much going on. So it was fairly quiet from the customer perspective, although we did have several prospects and customers who did come through that we had some great conversations with. But I think that the thing that I've really learned the last couple of weeks is the importance of those relationships with vendors. We, for many years as a company, have always really valued and appreciated the relationships we have with our vendors. We have suppliers that we know that, hey, if we're in a pinch and we need them to go above and beyond, they're going to do their best to do that. And I feel like the last couple of years we lost some of that. And I think part of it has been because of the lack of personal interaction and seeing each other and spending time with each other. Part of it, frankly, is just the craziness of the world that we're in. But I've really had driven home to me the last couple of weeks the importance of those relationships with our vendors. And certainly then we hope that our customers likewise see the importance of the relationship with us. And I think it reminds us that we need to, especially during these times when maybe you're not able to do as much physical visiting as you would like, we need to really continue to step up those ways to connect with customers and others out there. And, one of the things I started this morning, I had done way back during the height of COVID, I was doing daily videos and putting them out on social media. Well, this morning I restarted that and started doing it again. And, I just really like that ability to have that being in front of people, remind them of you. And then, hopefully, hey, I love it if they reach out and return and we get some communication going at that point. So, and today we have our exciting Construction Disruption swag. So those of you on podcast can't see this, but we got these cool tumblers, and I think basically tumbler was this way for people to be able to drink wine out of a mug. I don't know. That's not what we've got. I got coffee, I swear. In fact, I burned my lip on it. But anyway, so we've got our Construction Disruption tumblers, and every guest, our guests, including our guest today on our podcast, or vodcast, that's a new word I learned recently, vodcast, is going to get a free complimentary Construction Disruption tumbler. So that's exciting.
Fantastic. I got one too. I guess that's my compensation for co-hosting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably a bit of overpay, but we're going to do it anyway.
I appreciate it. No, I think those supplier relationships, it's so incredibly important. And like you said, we strive to be that relationship with our customers, something that your dad has always said, you've always said, and now it really permeates our company, is we're not successful if our customers are not successful, and it works so much better when everyone through the stream is operating with that way. And with current supply shortages and the craziness and everyone on allocations, I've had some conversations with customers and other peers in the industry that, no one's really jumping around right now, but we have in our head, in back of our mind, of who do we want in our foxhole next time things get crazy, and that's the reality.
Great point. And we all need to be thinking about that, because I think the speed of crazy only keeps increasing. It seems like in my life,
speed and frequency.
So you want to know who those partners are that stuck with you and were still with you during those crazy times. That's a good point.
Absolutely. I am excited for our guest today on Construction Disruption. We are joined by the Modcoach, Gary Fleisher, a leader and veteran of the modular construction industry and publisher of the Modular Home Builder blog at modularhomesource.com. Todd, it has traditionally felt like that modular construction is a very distinct, isolated silo of our industry. We knew of it, but it has had very little impact on what we do or what we thought about. But that has definitely changed the last couple of years. We are seeing great innovation coming out of that industry, significant investment going into that industry.
Absolutely.
And many of us, I know, are thinking about the advantages of modular construction now, and some advantages they have facing some of the greatest challenges we face holistically as an industry. So this is a fantastic opportunity to learn more and take that conversation. So thank you so much, Gary, for joining us here today.
I'm happy to be here.
I offered a short bio on you to open up, the short bio of pretty much everything I knew about you and your background. So thought that we'd then here to start, just learn more about your history in modular construction and why you've really devoted your career to it.
Actually, I've been in the construction-related industry for about 40 years. Started my life in this industry as the manager of one of the largest lumber yards in Pennsylvania, and went from that to running my own business as a GC. Did that for 13 years, and one day I fell off of a second floor deck, and I said, this isn't for me anymore.
Wow.
Good. So I joined a company. I joined Champion actually as a HUD rep, and that was a different time in my life, selling mobile homes. But they had this interesting thing called Genesis Homes, which was a true modular IRC based home, and they were looking for their first salesman, and I volunteered, and next thing you know, I'm selling Genesis Homes everywhere east of the Mississippi. And I cut my teeth with Champion on their Genesis home line, and haven't looked back since. I have been with several companies, and then it doesn't seem possible, but I retired. And right before I retired, I started writing a blog, and it was to help my own builders, mostly. Got tired of having them call me all the time and emailing me, so I started being proactive and doing this little blog before blogs were even popular. And it was to inform them on a daily basis of what's new out of our factory. And that is what the Genesis 4 modular home builder was. I decided when I retired, that only lasted about 6 months of doing nothing until my wife says, you either find something to do or I'll find you something to do. So I resurrected the blog, and I haven't looked back. And now it's probably the most widely read modular blog. I get about 3.5 million page views a year. And I do it all from my little office here in my house. And I go on the roads. I hold builder breakfasts. I hold all day modular boot camps, which are really unique. I bring people in from all over the world to talk. We meet in central locations, and I get 100 150 people at those shows and events. So right now, COVID has sort of restricted me in my travels, and I was all set to go on to Dallas for a live seminar, and good golly, Southwest decided to shut down all their planes.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to do it by video, and that was interesting. But anyway, that's my short history.
Well, I always enjoy what you write, and you are very much, I would say, no holds barred. You say what you think and what you've learned, and I love it. So I really enjoy. Keep up the good work on that.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask me some really pointed questions. I'll give you some critical answers.
There we go. Looking forward to those. So,
Yeah.
Obviously a powerful advocate for the industry. I'm curious, that career selling modular homes, I'm showing my ignorance here. What does that distribution channel look like? Who are you going out and calling on, and who then are you now primarily educating?
Traditionally, it has been new home builders. On-site builders that have converted to modular just makes it a lot easier for them. An on-site builder averages about 5 to 7 homes a year. If they switch to modular, at least back when I was full-time and things were really good and you could get supplies and you could get things to the production line quickly, that same 5 to 7 homes could jump to as high as 20, 25 because all the main work, about 80% of it was done in a factory. They didn't have to worry about anything. The only thing they had to do was wait until the house was set on the foundation and then go in and do the final, send their crew in and do the final finish. So modular really started in that builder realm, replacing on-site building. And that's really it. And then you have to differentiate modular from manufactured. Manufactured homes are built to the HUD code, which is not a lesser code, but it's a federal code. And their inspection process is very quick, very easy. And they turn out a lot of homes. You've all seen the single and double wide parks and the single wides and double wides sitting in the middle of the country. But modular fits right in with the R1 neighborhoods. They are so custom, especially in the East Coast. Custom modular is the king. I've seen 2-box modulars go out. I've seen, well, I didn't see this one, but I heard about it, a 41 module house, 14,000 square feet, all modular, and the entire 14,000 square foot home was set, finished, and they locked the front door in 2 days.
Goodness.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the beauty of modular.
Well, and that gain in efficiency and jump of what that example, a builder going from 5 to 7 to 20 to 25, that's really what has us, taking note of modular and what that's going to look like for the future of the industry, because we're all having to do more with the same or even less. And so how do we accomplish our goals in the process? But that customization element is something I was thinking about preparing for our conversation, because in reading through your blog in preparation, where I realized I had this very distinct picture in my head of a modular home. The very simple ranch that looked like it had just been dropped off the truck 2 weeks ago, regardless of how old it was, and that was kind of the look. But going through your blog and seeing your posts each week of modular home of the week was obvious that is not the case, or that's not the, yes, those exist, but that is not the limitation. So yeah, tell us more about that customization and what that looks like from a modular perspective.
Just about anything you can imagine for a site-built home, an architecturally designed home, can be transferred over to the modular industry. Not everything. I mean, there are homes you cannot possibly build modular, but there are homes you can. In fact, there are homes that are so unusual. One looks like a Martian from outer space, and it comes in 3 sections, and it's built in the factory and put together and stacked three high. I mean, it really is strange. Some look like long whiskey barrels, come in sections, and everything's pre-finished inside with a grass roof on it. They even plant the grass in the factory. I mean, you name it, it can probably be built modular. But the custom part of it is slowly going away for a couple of reasons. They're the skilled labor market. That's tough. I mean, the craftsmen that used to be out there to do that, a lot of them are still there, but now you have factories that need to turn out more modules a week, so they're discouraging custom because custom takes time. And even in a factory, it takes time. And if your backlog, which is currently in the industry, I just did a poll on this. If you order a home today, if you're a builder and you order a home today, it will probably take you a year to get it. That is so the way it is. The supply chain, the labor, the transportation, it's all killing. Well, it's not only killing modular, it's killing all site building.
And how does that 1 year compare to, say, 2 years ago? What was that number?
2 years ago was probably 2 months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And that
big change.
COVID just killed everything. I mean, I understand COVID's a pandemic and I understand everything. But whether we overreacted to it or not, I mean, that's up to the politicians and scientists. All I know is it hurt everybody's industry.
Yes.
And especially hurt the modular industry.
Yeah, so you're touching on 2 key topics I wanted to get your perspective on. So, we'll jump into that supply chain conversation. I've been driving on my way to work past this commercial building being built here in Piqua, Ohio, and it is a building that very simple would have, 2 years ago probably been up and operational and turning money in just a couple of months, and it has taken, almost a year. So no doubt affected by these supply chain disruptions and shortages and all those things. And thinking about how that might apply to modular, I was wondering if it's not a greater effect on the modular industry, just because I'm guessing most of these manufacturers don't have a lot of spare space to store partway built homes or other properties at their location. And through that process, if you're dealing with shortages, you're obviously losing a lot of the efficiencies, I would think, of assembly line construction and in-factory construction. So would love to hear what you're seeing and if some of that is how that is playing out in that industry.
Well, you're partway right.
Okay.
There is still a huge advantage in modular in the commercial side. Huge advantage. Now, you talked about the building taking forever to build on site. Well, if you are a developer and that is your building, you are paying in carrying costs, interest. You are fighting to find subs. You are fighting to get them scheduled in because you're competing with every other on-site builder and GC out there. With modular, it takes the same amount of time, but once those units are done in the factory, so far the developer hasn't really paid anything except a down payment. So if it takes him 8 months to a year to get that project out, he's not out any additional money or carrying costs or anything else. So when that project arrives, they can put up 40, 60 modules for a motel or a hotel, for example, in 2 to 3 days. And all of a sudden, while that project that was on site is costing that developer an arm and a leg, the clock didn't start on the modular side until it hit the site. Mm-hmm. And at that point, that project is probably 70 to 80% complete. So all they're doing is finish work, connections, the MEP, and usually within 2 months, maybe 3 at the outside, that hotel's up and taking guests in, making money. And that's a lot different than that on-site guy that, he's losing money.
So, and then on the skilled labor side, you mentioned, customization being shrunk back, just trying to find folks that can do that, offer that craftsmanship. So how's that looked and played out over the last few years in modular? Because from our perspective, it seems like they have a huge advantage on that side where, there's no risk of falling off a second-story deck when you're at ground level in a plant. So, competing for that scarce supply of skilled labor. So,
well, the modular industry definitely has an advantage with that. I mean, you go to the same building to work every day. The modular factories are very COVID-19 responsive. The safety features in the factory are basically second to none. And you're right, even in the factory, when the guys are up on the roof, even though it's only one story, and they're hooked up to all the safety that's available to them, the belts and the bars and everything are there. And the problem that they have right now is basically just everybody's having it, is hiring people. They'll even train, and they're paying good wages. I'll give you a real good example of what happened in my little county. There's 40,000 people in my county. We have a high poverty rate, but there is a humongous shortage of labor. Well, what happened is, just in my little town, 29,000 people, we now have 3 Amazon distribution centers and a last day distribution center. So we have 4 Amazon warehouses in my town, each of them over 100,000 square feet. We have Chewy is opening up. We have 2 Tractor Supplies. We have a Lowe's distribution center. We have Kellogg's We have more distribution centers here than just about anywhere in the country. We have, because we're an intersection of 2 railroads and 2 interstate highways. So we are perfect for this. Our town's called the Hub City. What's happened now, traditional industries out there can't compete with Amazon. Amazon sucked up over 500 employees in less than a year, just out of the available people out there. So now we're scrambling for labor. It's not a matter that people don't want to work, or we paid them $300 extra a week or whatever. It's the fact that there's just so many more distribution points and so many more businesses on that scale opening up and just sucking up everybody that was unemployed.
Wow, that's a powerful example. I was talking with a friend in the industry who told me that, another building products manufacturer is looking to expand, is growing, needing people, and they looked at this building that would be perfect, but it was next door to an Amazon distribution center, and they had to move on because they knew people would walk from their parking lot right over to Amazon, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can't imagine working at Amazon. They actually expect results.
You're well connected on, obviously, the best out of anybody in that industry. So any manufacturers, modular manufacturers, doing creative, unique, innovative things to try to address that skilled labor challenge?
Well, we have to. And 2 of them that come to mind real quick. Autoval in Idaho. I don't know if you've ever heard of Autoval.
I have not.
In the modular factory, up until 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was totally manual. Everything from the time the lumber hit the one door and out the other, it was human labor. Now, automation, robotics is hitting. And the robotics at this point can't go past the framing stage because that's really the automation. When you get into MEP and the final finish and hanging cabinets and installing bathrooms, that's still very manual. Look for that to start changing. But right now it's manual. But the fascinating part is Autovol's robots, and they are supplied by House of Design, also in Idaho. And it's the most choreographed thing you've ever seen in your life. I mean, they just pick up the lumber, they put it in, they nail it. And one video I watched of them, there were 2 people in the entire side of the factory. That was it. And both of them were standing there just watching the machines in case they had a breakdown. But otherwise, there were no human labor there. Everything is done by these robots. I was reading a story, IKEA has one of the largest bookcase factories in the world. And I thought, well, this is sort of a stupid story until I read it, and there's nobody works there except some maintenance people and a couple engineers and a programmer. Everything else, when you buy an IKEA bookcase, it's completely from one door to the other, assembled, cut, measured, stuffed into boxes, and wrapped by robots.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest innovation. And that's on the west side of the Mississippi. On the east side, we have another company called Blueprint Robotics is doing the same thing. So yeah, automation and automated tables and robots are quickly coming into our industry. And again, you can't do that on a site-built home.
You know, when I think back to a number of years ago when I was working a little bit in the manufactured housing industry, I thought of certain geographic hubs where there was a lot going on. I mean, I thought of northern Indiana, Arizona, Florida. Is it more widespread now when we get into the modular construction, or are there still certain geographic centers?
Yeah, there are unique situations. Essentially, there's five regions in the country. You've got the Northeast, which goes from about the Mason-Dixon line up through New York and through New England. Some of those states are as high as 26% modular built homes. Out on to Martha's Vineyard in that area, one company alone, one modular factory alone has delivered over 500 homes to Martha's Vineyard. That means putting them on barges, and the cranes go out in barges, and it's amazing watching the choreography of that. Then you move into the South, everything below the Mason-Dixon line, and you run into what they call an on-frame modular and very little customization, but it's still popular. In fact, there's a couple new factories getting ready to open. Impressa Building Systems just bought a 240,000 square foot factory to start turning out modular homes for their franchisees and builders and developers in the South. So, I mean, the South is picking up tremendously. Then you move into the Midwest, and that's always been a good place for modular. But the modular in the Midwest tends to be 2-box or a cape with an unfinished second floor.
Yep.
That is the hallmark of the Midwest. That's slowly changing, but not rapidly. You go to the Southwest, and they go, modular? What's that? Is it a double-wide trailer? Is that what you're talking about? Because they really don't do modular housing down there. Because everything down there is usually on slab. And modulars do not work well on slab. In fact, they don't work at all well on modular construction. You have to have a floor. So you put a floor on a concrete base, what do you got? You've got repetition. And then you go to the West Coast. That is sort of like the petri dish of modular. anything you can imagine, all the new ideas, all the new software, all the new innovation seems right now to be coming out of the West Coast. You got Silicon Valley there, and a lot of those engineers were laid off during the beginning of COVID. So they turned to other industries, and we're seeing innovations coming out that are just unbelievable. We're doing AI, and the BIM is, it's just tearing through our industry. It's just amazing what's coming out of there. Now, is it being used by the rest of the modular industry? Nah, not yet. But you wait. You can't continue to do business. We can't. As a modular industry, we cannot afford to do business as it's been done for the last 50 years. I'll give you a real good example. In 1856, they found a manufacturer in Cincinnati, Ohio, was turning out modular cabins. Unbelievable. And they were shipping them by barge to the Midwest for the homesteaders. 1856.
Wow, I'd never heard this before.
Yes. Well, apparently a lot of the records disappeared, and the homes weren't real well made. They didn't have to have electricity, plumbing. Basically, they didn't have to have anything except a six-sided structure. But they were stacked on barges in fours. Well, one of the barges was recovered here about, 15, 20 years ago. And when they pulled it up, they found a wealth of things on there, including 4 decayed modular homes. So, there's a museum dedicated to this one barge. I'll have to send you the link to that. But this has been going on since 1856. And aside from adding electricity, plumbing, and heating, nothing in our industry has changed. It's just that simple. We get more energy efficient. We get greener. We added sustainability. It's wonderful stuff to talk about, but boy, all it does is add cost to the modular home. And when IRC updates their code every 4 years, our industry gets hit with longer lead times at code offices. Now, the on-site people can take in 20-page, for a new home, they can take in a 20-page plan, give it to the code office, and within a week, they'll get their approval. Not with modular in a lot of states. You have to send it to the state code office, and there you're put on top of the pile, or put in the bottom of the pile, and you slowly work your way up the top. And when you get there, in order for these code people to continue doing their job, they find the smallest details to red flag, send it back to the factory. I've seen code approvals take 6 months. And you have to look at it this way. In Pennsylvania, the manufactured housing industry and the modular are both done by the same office. And up until about 5 years ago, the modular code review by the state was done by the same people that inspected amusement rides.
Wow.
There's just so many crazy things. And what's it going to be like when all this new stuff comes in? You can't tell me that a 60-year-old code enforcement officer is going to know anything about AI and how to fly a drone. It just doesn't happen. So we're educating code officials right now through our associations.
Wow. So what's the logic of that, of routing it through the state offices?
Wait a minute. You're asking for logic in a state government. Yeah, okay. Now, there are state governments that say, oh, you have a modular home? There are some states in the Midwest, to be unnamed, that if you have a piece of ground, you can go in and put your foundation in, have your modular home delivered, set, and then you go into town and say, hey, I put a house on my property. You better come out and inspect it for taxes. I mean, so there's all sorts of, you can't pull that off in the East. You couldn't pull it off in the West, but the Midwest is probably very logical in what they're doing. But it's unpopular with the other kids in the class.
Thank you for that history. 1856. That was one of my questions. You know, how long have we been doing this? So
a while.
Yes, I was born after that.
Yeah,
So-
and Lincoln told me he didn't even know about that. So
there you go. So you gave us some insight into the history of modular construction, 1856, here out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Swinging to the other end of the spectrum, you mentioned them earlier, the guys out on the West Coast and gals out on the West Coast who are doing some very innovative things. And that's really what has drawn our attention to modular over the last couple of years, especially seeing a company called Quintera in the news, especially seeing all the dollars that were being invested in Quintera. And we know now that unfortunately Quintera ceased to exist as of a few months ago, but would love your insight, and you undoubtedly know more about the history and how Quintera came to be than we did, as well as what were they trying to do that was so innovative and cutting edge.
I have a different outlook on Quintera than just about anybody. So
Yes, I was hoping so.
You're ready for it? I'm going to give it to you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Quintera was founded and funded by the same people that did WeWork. I don't know if you're aware of them.
Yeah.
But their Hulu has a whole movie about how WeWork basically just took money and basically went out of business. So it's the same thing. You have investors that look at an industry and say, we can do it better than they've been doing it for the last 150 years, and we'll do it tomorrow or later on today. We'll just start, and we'll pour $1 billion into it to get it running. Well, I'm not sure about you, but I don't think I could pay the interest on $1 billion. I'd rather have the billion than try to pay the interest on it. But they did one thing that is really nice for modular housing. The first thing they did is they built this wonderful factory in California. I think California, Arizona. I'm not sure. Who knows? Anyway, it's Quintera's factory. And they built wall panels, they built doors, they built windows, they did all sorts of things all through automation. And when it went bankrupt, everybody in the industry is going, oh, woe is us. What are we going to do? Is this the future of what's going to happen in the offsite industry? And it turns out that a company from the East, VBC, stands for Volume Building Corporation, or Vaughan Buckley Construction, a very, very well organized, well-funded company, said, we'd like to buy that. And they did. And what they're doing is they're restarting it in a very organized, very knowledgeable way. They're taking each step of it and refining it, making it better without that $1 billion investment. So now we have this VBC available on both sides of the country. It's owned by a young man named Vaughan Buckley, and he is one of the sharpest people I've ever known in the modular housing industry. He saw an opportunity, and he's taking that disastrous Quintera $1 billion eyesore, and he's turning it into a real gem.
Fantastic.
So that is a real nice thing. And Mercer out of Canada bought the CLT plant. So even though Quintera went bankrupt, what is coming out of that bankruptcy are things that would have normally taken years to develop and get ready, took overnight. So it's a good thing that way. And I feel sorry for the people that invested $1 billion, but I feel happy that VBC and Mercer were able to come in, pick it up for pennies on the dollar, and actually make it work.
Very interesting. Actually, as you tell that story, it reminds me a bit of our company because we have had a history of acquiring product lines a few years after other companies had made heavy investments, couldn't figure out how to make it go, and we came in and bought it, on pennies on the dollar and made a go of it. So a much smaller scale than Von Buckley and Quintera, but very interesting.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to the modular housing industry. Well, sorry, Quintera.
Glad that the industry will still benefit from that. So,
oh yes,
I'm curious. So, with that $1 billion, were they doing did they bring anything new, develop anything new or revolutionary for the industry?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
not one new thing that hadn't already been tried. They brought in people that a lot of the people in the beginning knew what they were doing. And then, from my understanding, management decided that not to let them have free rein. They decided they were going to be more conservative. And the more money they lost, the more conservative they got. Well, you know the story.
Yeah. So one of the articles I read about them, for a long time, they were, they had people knocking on their door ready to build them or give them money. So they kept taking the investment and building this huge kind of mess of vertical integration all up and down, their supply chain. Is that normal, the big guys, established guys in the industry being very vertically integrated, or are they working with...
It didn't used to be. It's becoming very much the norm for the newer companies.
Interesting.
They are project oriented. In other words, they don't look at homes anymore. They look at module living units. So a developer will say, I can't find enough modular companies to build my projects. I need 1,000 modules a year, and nobody has room on their assembly lines to give me 1,000. Even if I go to 10 different factories and mesh them all together, I can't build that 1,000 modules. So what is happening now, a lot of these people are opening their own factories. And what they're finding is that the efficiencies of running their own factory is so much better than it was doing it on site. Everything's brought into one house and then shipped out. And they are becoming very, very vertically integrated within their system. In addition to that, some of these factories that were started to build their own product became efficient enough to start taking on outside projects. But these outside projects want the same efficiency that they saw at the factory with the total vertical integration. So that's what's happening. You're seeing factories at least being vertically integrated from design to engineering to production to delivery to set. And some of them do their own finish, but most of them, once they're set, the finish comes subcontracted.
You've mentioned some players that sound very interesting, like they're on the leading edge. VBC, obviously, Impreza, Autovol are the few that I've written down. Any other manufacturers out there that you want to highlight or are bringing unique things to the table? I
mean, you have established modular such as Gurdon Homes or Gurdon Building Systems. They are excellent. I mean, there's a bunch of them that are really doing some wonderful work. But what's very interesting are the companies that you wouldn't expect to be doing modular are getting into it themselves. Chick-fil-A,
Really?
they built a modular factory, and they're turning out their own modular Chick-fil-A restaurants. Who would have thought that? Down in Florida, there's a factory down there that turns out Checkers and Rallies. Another one turns out Dunkin' Donuts. It just goes on and on like that. One of the chicken places besides Chick-fil-A that they're also buying modulars. So yeah, there's some really you're going to see some more unique things. I mean, you do realize that cruise ships aren't built at the dock. Are you aware of that?
Never thought of it. No.
Oh no, the different sections of that cruise ship are built off-site and delivered to the dock in humongous barges, moved into the dock and set in place. And then they're all just welded, and just like you would set a house. They're all welded together, and then all the lines are hooked together. But they can be building. They've cut the time on building a cruise ship substantially.
Wow!
Because instead of working from the bottom up and having all those people come to one place and build it stick built, basically, with big sticks. They subcontract the entire ship to a couple different yards, and then they're put on barges and, like I said, just shipped there. Airplanes. Boeing builds a lot of their planes in modules, has it shipped in. The wings aren't built there. Wings are shipped in. The fuselage isn't built there. It's shipped in. So when you look at modular, you see it more than you would suspect you see it. And it's growing. I expect, you asked what's the future going to look like? Well, if I had a crystal ball, I would say within a decade, maybe two, if you're not building with modular, you're going to be slowly going down the drain.
That's powerful. It certainly sounds like it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, that's definitely something for our listeners and viewers to be paying attention to. That's for sure. What are some of the statistics on modular construction as far as rate of growth or dollars or whatever you might be able to share to help us get some idea of the scope and size?
2 years ago, it was between 2 and 3% of all new construction.
Okay.
But with what's happening today, I think it's going to probably rise a couple percent a year. At least that's my thought. The problem with modular is capacity.
Sure.
And the on-site builders don't have a capacity problem. They have a worker problem. They just need to throw more workers at the stuff. So they're always going to be up to the tract home builders do the same thing. But a lot of them are switching to off-site manufacturing by having all their wall panels made off-site, all their trusses made off-site and shipped in. Very few of the big tract builders build walls on site anymore. But the modular factories, the only way they can get capacity is build more floor space.
Sure.
Yeah, and floor space is expensive.
Sure.
And a lot of them are having trouble getting one shift filled. And you would think, well, let's just run a second shift. Well, that ship sailed for every industry in the United States, I think. There is very few outside of Amazon has a second shift running. And that's really the game. You just need to have capacity. And some of these factories, here's an interesting one for you. Some of these factories are shipping 1,000, 1,200 miles just to satisfy a developer's need. Factories in Pennsylvania are delivering to Key West. Factories in Virginia are delivering to Colorado. I have one factory in Minnesota that I've talked to, nice people. And I said, where do you deliver to? And they said, oh, we'll go up to 1,000 miles. I said, how do you do that? He says, well, it's pretty easy out here. He says, we just put in the address into our GPS, and it comes back, get on the interstate, drive 1,000 miles, take the first turn, first road on the right. He said, it's really easy, but he said, still 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's, shipping is increasingly a challenge, and drivers and all that type of stuff too.
Oh yeah, I am absolutely amazed that Amazon started delivering their own product. They bought a fleet of trucks,
Yep.
and they don't seem to have a problem finding drivers. Yet we can't find tractor trailer drivers to haul our product.
Yeah, you're right.
So, Gary, part of the vision of construction disruption and having these conversations is to hopefully serve as a resource for those early in their career and giving them a forecast and outlook and maybe some direction on the future of construction and what that might look like. So, curious, what's your thoughts if and advice would be to someone earlier in their career getting into construction, modular or otherwise, and then what would you tell them to be paying attention to?
Learn a trade. If you're not going to college, learn a trade. Be an electrician, be a plumber, HVAC. It doesn't matter, concrete, but learn a trade, and you will have value. You will have value beyond belief. An electrician in New York City, I mean, he makes more money than some CEOs at corporations. A plumber, oh my heavens. And we, in the last 2 decades, have told all the parents, well, if your kid doesn't go to college, he's not going to amount to anything. Well, I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people at McDonald's that have degrees that are asking if you want to supersize that. But
Yep.
if you want to make money and you want to have a career and you want to be in demand, learn a trade. My son's a prime example. He's 50. Well, actually, he's 51. And he had a nice job for a factory. He was a heavy equipment operator. And he got tired of it. He said, Dad, what can I do? I said, learn a trade. He said, I'm too old. I said, no, you're not. So he went to classes to be a CNC cutter in heavy gauge steel. We're talking things that are 3 and 4 inches thick. And turned out he was hired immediately, and boy, he's got time in his hands, he's got money in his pocket, and his family just loves it. So, learn a trade. You want to know what the key is? Learn a trade. If you have a college degree or you're going to college, take construction management, take construction engineering, take any of the engineering courses. They're all going to be rewarded by modular and the offsite industry. Now, I keep saying offsite. You have to include both modular and offsite in the same sentence anymore. Used to be they were opposite people. But now there are panelized wall factories that are delivering the panels to modular factories. So they're working together. One company up in Vermont builds modules. And I said, do you ever do any stick building? He says, well, we don't do any stick here. But he said, we have a couple industries up here. One of them's Yankee Barn and one of them's Benson Wood that build the core of the house with all the raised ceilings and the big beams and all that. And he says, and then we come in and put the kitchens and the bathrooms and the bedrooms in as modules. We just integrate our system into that system. And if you ever want to see some beautiful homes, go to Benson Wood or go to Yankee Barn Homes. Beautiful stuff. And try to figure out which parts of them are module.
Fantastic. That was going to be one of my questions of what's this overlap starting to look like between modular and offsite and where we can maximize the benefits of both. So it's exciting to see those partnerships come together, and we're going to need them, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean we have to work together. The problem at this point right now is when you go to IBS, and this year it's going to be in Orlando. We will be there in full force. But when you go to the Building Systems Council, you walk the floor, you talk to the vendors, and you do a head count of how many modular factory owners are there. The last one that was held in Vegas, there were 5 modular factory owners at IBS.
Wow.
Isn't that disgusting? We should have been there and taken over the thing, but we're not. We are a group, we are an industry that has a lot of factories that don't talk to each other. Our associations are good, they're trying, but until we actually sit down at the table and begin working together to solve the problems. We don't have an education division. We have one small marketing division in all of our associations. So we need to get those up and running. MHBA for the Modular Home Builders Association is having their annual meeting in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at the end of this month. And it's the first time that they've had this amount of people sign up to find out about modular. So yeah, it's growing, it's coming, and but we have a long way to go as an industry.
Well, thankful that there's people like you who are passionate and really leading that way and building those bridges to those of us who don't know very much but are very curious and are hungry for the same connections and
I'm more
progress.
accused of blowing up bridges than I am building.
You're great. You're definitely the guy to be paying attention to.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
thank you.
So, Gary, this has been a great conversation. Here, before we wrap up, transition into a more lighthearted portion of our conversation. If you're up for it, we call it our rapid fire question round. So
I was fearing this, but let's go.
Okay, so
Rapid fire.
7 questions, range from maybe more serious or more silly, and we just ask for an answer for each. And those listening, Gary has not seen these, so it's going to we'll see what he comes up with. But first question, thanks for being willing. First question, Gary, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert and a closet introvert.
Okay, there we go. I understand that balance a little bit, but I probably could have guessed that one after talking with you for a few minutes. But okay, question number 2, window or aisle seat on an airplane?
Oh, window. And especially on Southwest, you get the wing, the seat by the wing. There's no seat in front of you.
Okay, perfect. The exit row, extra room. Fantastic. Best time of day for you to write?
3:00 in the morning.
3 in the morning. I've heard early.
He's got me beat on that one.
Yeah,
I'm 4.
I call 3 in the morning middle of the night, so we have different definition of.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed when I was younger, but now that I'm older, it's turned into a routine. Bathroom, and then go right.
There you go. Favorite dessert?
Oh, shoe fly pie.
Shoe fly pie. I have not heard of shoe fly pie.
Oh, you're not a Pennsylvania Dutch.
Okay.
It's heavy molasses with a molasses cake and crumbs all over the top of it.
Okay, sounds delicious.
Yeah, next time you're in Pennsylvania, I'll buy you one.
Okay, sounds good.
Wait a minute, you're in Ohio. It won't take long for you to travel here.
No, we can. Just a few hours.
Yeah.
So, if you were a high school teacher, what subject would you teach?
Oh, that's easy. Physics.
Really? I expected shop class or something.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I love physics.
Very cool. Can you paint us a picture of your dream home?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's a 2-bedroom ranch sitting in Boothbay Harbor, Maine, right overlooking the Atlantic Ocean and the big rocks and the waves breaking.
Beautiful. Last one. So what is your bucket list vacation?
It used to be Europe, but I wouldn't go there now if you paid me. My bucket list vacation right now is probably Key West. I have not ever been down to the bottom of Key West.
Okay. Todd likes it down there.
That's nice. Yes.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Gary. That's fun. A little more insight into who you are. And this has been a great conversation. So before we wrap up here, I know you have some new exciting developments on regarding website and your writing. So would love for you to tell us more about that.
Oh, this will be a quick one, but you're right. It's very interesting. In July, my original website was acquired by, well, actually, it wasn't acquired. It was sold to myself and another person, and we call it iMedia Group. And we are working on launching an Offsite Builder magazine. That's the name of it, Offsite Builder. And it is going to be a print magazine, an online magazine, and a website. Our plans are to have it ready for distribution starting in January, and you'll be able to sign up on LinkedIn and on my site to subscribe to the print magazine. Todd, you'll appreciate this. When you get a magazine, what do you do with it? You pass it around.
You do.
Yes. You can't do that with a website.
Nope. You're absolutely right. You put that little routing slip on and send it to others, and
Yep.
Absolutely. So, Offsite Builder, I love it, and everyone can be reminded they heard it here first, I think.
Oh yeah, don't worry. If you're in the offsite industry, we'll be in touch with you about advertising.
Cool. Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely. To remind everyone, Gary's website is modularhomesource.com. Gary, is the best way for people to get in touch with you through the website?
No, actually just modcoach@gmail.com.
Okay, Modcoach, MOD coach@gmail.com.
Wow, what a great guest. I really enjoyed our time with Gary. He's definitely the guy to go to if anyone has any questions about modular construction or off-site building, as he says. Certainly my eyes were opened. I keep hearing, and we hear bits and pieces, and of course you related a little bit about Quintera, and I loved Gary's take on that. But I still go back to 40 years ago when it was the manufactured housing he was describing, the single wides and the double wides and the park models. But it has advanced so much beyond that at this point. And his statistic in New England, what was that?
26% of all construction.
That's incredible. And, you can't, I don't normally think of the Northeast as being particularly progressive. I mean, I know that they have some challenges up there in terms of transportation and just the congestedness of the communities up there that probably lead a little bit, and probably labor shortage as well. But, you have to think if it's happening there and growing, that's going to happen every place.
Absolutely. And hearing other players that are getting into the industry, he had the take on Quintera, but, totally far-flung. Chick-fil-A building a modular factory for their own buildings, which I'm excited about. That means more spicy chicken deluxe sandwiches probably, but just seeing the challenges that are out in the marketplace right now, and this is definitely an opportunity, whether fully contained or some of those relationships he was mentioning of on-site, off-site, working together to move the industry forward is certainly compelling, and it's great anytime connecting with someone with as much passion as Gary has. And I don't know of any others with that level of passion for modular housing. So it was very exciting to get to talk with them.
I don't either. And I'd heard that the other day about Chick-fil-A, and over the years, I've seen a few other commercial chains, pop up and start doing some modular type things. And it always seemed like those chains tended to fizzle. So it's kind of exciting to hear about some name brand, already well-established chains that are going that direction rather than startups that are trying it and sometimes doesn't happen. So exciting. So we got to figure out how metal roofing fits into all of this, or other metal components fit into it as well. That's our challenge as a company, but I think all of our listeners and viewers, as they think about the continued development of modular offsite building in their own areas, their own markets, everybody needs to think about, well, what are my opportunities here? How can I become a disruptor in my area, and using offsite building as a vehicle for becoming that?
Absolutely. We play a lot in the remodeling sandbox, and it's easy for those of us in that sandbox to kind of dismiss it. But just like Gary was saying, the finish work is getting done by robots. It is moving forward. We've seen remodeling, modular have an impact on remodeling with our customers in Japan and elsewhere. It's common for all of us. So how are we going to capitalize on it?
Well, and he didn't touch on it, but Quintera was doing some remodeling work as well. So they were doing retrofitting of Class C multifamily and things like that. So they were figuring out ways to do it also, and so it'll hit retrofit as well, no doubt. So good stuff.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for hosting. You did a great job.
I'll leave it up to you next time.
I don't know. We'll see. Well, thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much, Gary. This has been fantastic. Thank you, all of our listeners, for tuning in to this episode of Construction Disruption. Please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We have more great guests on tap. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or anywhere else that you listen to your podcasts. Thank you, as always, for being here. Take care, and God bless. Isaiah Industries signing off until the next episode of Construction Disruption.